Take it away.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Sorrel, and I'm so delighted to be here with all of you. I am a longtime volunteer with Sustainable Claremont, and I'm currently one of 2 vice chairs. The organization has been around for about 13 years now, and it's just getting better all the time. We've grown from an all-volunteer organization to one with a small but mighty staff that absolutely blows me away with all that they accomplish. And you'll get to hear from some of them in a few minutes. And I also hope that you'll look for the annual report that will be released soon and highlights all of the great work that's been done this past year. But thank you all so much for coming to our event this evening. And I also really want to thank our sponsors for making this possible. We're so grateful for all of the support. So we have an amazing lineup. We'll hear from the staff about program highlights and what to expect looking forward. And we have an incredible speaker in Embry. But while we wait for a few more people to join us, we've got some great live music for everyone. So Cassidy, take it away.
I'm Cassidy, and this is a song I wrote called Urban Renewal. Another skyscraper added to the skyline, built so high, make it hard to see any poor folk below. A second sports arena, next door a Costco, and a Starbucks down every road. They're working on the highway, wish train stopped my way, but I'm stuck here at the 60 Lizzo on my radio. Dreaming of the skyway with the 2-way bike lane where the city's built for cars and roads. An urban renewal would do us all a bit of good, where the houses are affordable, even outside the hood, and there'd be more services available to help shape rough childhoods, and the parks would be free to grow. Drunk on fossil fuel and about to quit cold turkey. No one wants to listen if it means it costs more money, so we settle with the status quo while the ocean's growing murky. Our renewal is on death row. The polar ice caps are melting at a rapid rate, and no one seems to be concerned. Any sign of hope is beginning to evaporate. But add another skyscraper to a crowded skyline, you can build 1,000 stores and only ignore the crowd below. Pack out your sports arenas, stock up at Costco, but time is winding low. An urban renewal where no one has to go without food, 'cause there's plenty enough for everyone. We don't have to hoard that too. And the money spent on building prisons would all go to the schools, so the kids have a safe place to go. We're all drunk on fossil fuel and about to quit cold turkey. No one wants to listen, but Bitcoin is changing money. Still they settle with the status quo while inflation grows like herpes. A renewal is our only hope. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity to welcome you all to Sustainable Claremont's 2021 Gala. It is a pleasure to join you this evening and to celebrate this extraordinary work of Sustainable Claremont. On behalf of the entire City Council, I am proud to congratulate and offer our gratitude to Sustainable Claremont for another year of outstanding programs and services to our community. I'm so happy to be here with you all at this event where I'm sure we will hear from Sustainable Claremont staff about an exciting year ahead of us. We are fortunate to have such an amazing educational resource here in Claremont. Since 2010, Sustainable Claremont has been an organization for change in our community, informing residents on the benefits of environmental stewardship and advocating for sustainable environmental protections and affecting city policies. Sustainable Claremont has spearheaded initiatives to combat climate change, pollution, and protect our natural resources. The city is so fortunate to be a partner with Sustainable Claremont on projects like the tree program, organic recycling, composting, Earth Day, and Arbor Day. The support Sustainable Claremont gives the city helps us to achieve our sustainability goals. I am excited to hear about what Sustainable Claremont has in store for this coming year and look forward to assisting with their efforts. Thank you so much and enjoy the program.
Thank you so much, Mayor Stark, for that very kind introduction, and Casti for the great tunes, and Sorrel for the introduction, and just to everybody for turning out tonight and spending your Monday evening with us. I know that the Dodgers are playing and there's a lot going on, so we're so grateful to have everyone here. Before I get started, I just think now is a good time to recognize that today is Indigenous Peoples Day, and it's important to acknowledge the land that we're all living on now was stolen from the indigenous Tongva peoples who called this place home for generations. And so today is a day to honor their strength and the beauty of their culture, and to think about the place where we all live now. Having said that, quick introduction to myself. So if we've not met at this point, my name is Stuart Wood. I'm the executive director here at Sustainable Claremont, going on almost 3 years now. And so tonight, for my part, I just want to take this opportunity to tell all of you about some of the exciting new big things that had happened in our last program year, so 2020, 2021, which already seems like a long time ago. So I just want to focus on 3 quick ones, and then I'll turn it to my amazing colleagues who could speak more granularly about the programs that they're running and tell you some of the exciting things going on there. So first, in this last program year, we finally were able to launch our Green Home Tour, and that's something I was super excited about. We're always looking for new ways to respond to the community when they reach out to us, and one of some of the questions that we get most often are inquiries from the public about, who should I go to for solar? Or how much does it cost to get a gray water system? Or, if I want to do water-wise landscaping, what do I do? And so we sort of dreamed up this new program where we identify some homeowners, renters, and residents and senior communities who have done these major, living retrofits and upgrades. And so we put a spotlight on them for 4 weeks in June. And we led this interactive dialogue where members of the community could ask them for advice, how much things cost, what they wish they knew before they started adding things to their home, things that they would have done differently. And so a really great, exciting program, and one that we're really hopeful we could have in person in 2022, and something we're all very excited about. The second thing that happened in this last year that we're all very excited about and looking to its potential moving forward is that Nicole, who I'll introduce here in just a second, who runs our green crew. A lot of people know Sustainable Claremont for our tree planting efforts, and we've had this great track record of planting trees in the Claremont community. But one of the things we really wanted to do is to unlock new ways to plant more trees in places that our grants might not pay for. So the grants that we had normally been getting are great for planting city trees, in easements and in parks, but they didn't allow us to plant in schools or at domestic violence shelters or at, reforesting certain areas. So we were on the hunt for new ways to raise money to do that. And so in the last year, we launched our Plant a Tree program, where members of the community like you could donate, and then that money goes specifically to planting a tree. So we do like memorial trees, or trees in honor of someone, or just to plant a tree if that's where you want your donation to go. So that's been really great. We also launched our corporate tree planting program. It's another way for us to do more tree planting events outside of our normal grant avenue. So for this, companies can donate money and we plan a tree planting event. They bring their employees, we do all the planning, and then we plant trees, build school gardens. And so we launched that last year, and we were able to plant at a school in Tustin, a Title I school that had lost trees for like decades and didn't have any shade trees. And so we planted 6 shade trees for them, and we built them a school garden, and it just transformed those school grounds for like generations of students. So really kind of cool, exciting development for us. And then the last thing of the 3 that I'm really excited about is just all the new partnerships that we've been able to establish, even during that really difficult year of COVID. I think everyone was looking for new organizations to work with and trying to increase our impact, despite of the challenges of not being able to be together. At Sustainable Claremont, we are Claremont based, and I think we'll always call Claremont home. But we do want to expand our reach and be able to have an impact in the places that need it, in the frontline communities and schools and the places that really need help. And so just in this last year, we developed a relationship with YWCA, and we're planting trees and building gardens at the domestic violence shelter. The Haynes family of programs and Healthy Rancho Cucamonga, we've been planting trees with them. With Rotary, we're building school gardens in Claremont. We're building gardens in Upland. We planted in Tustin, West Covina, Pomona, Laverne, Claremont, Rancho Cucamonga, and we're going to be planting in San Bernardino. And we just recently did a grant agreement with the San Gabriel Valley Community Alliance, another nonprofit, to sort of expand our reach throughout the Pomona Valley and San Gabriel Valley. So much going on, so many exciting things that they're being set up for this next program year. But I need to stop talking. So Nicole, why don't you tell us about some of the great things that are happening with Green Crew and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole. I'm the Green Crew Program Manager. I've been the Green Crew Program Manager since January 2019. And something exciting that happened within the last year is that, of course, most people know we started out in Claremont with tree planting, and we really got everything down to a T there with how everything should work to get the best results. And from that, we've been able to actually replicate that program in other cities. So we have planted in other cities prior to this last year at parks, but this last year we actually for the first time planted in residential easements like we typically did in Claremont. So that was pretty exciting. We did that for the first time in Rancho Cucamonga. And one thing that I am personally really excited about is a couple months ago when I did the tree monitoring that we have to do to make sure that the trees are thriving and surviving and being watered as they should. Out of the about 50 residential trees that we planted, only 3 of them looked like they kind of needed more water. So that is actually a really good rate. I'm glad to see that the residents are taking care of them as they should.
So Nicole, what's going on in the next year? What's on the horizon for Green Crew?
Yes, so we recently got a new CAL FIRE grant to plant in Pomona more, and as Stuart said, to plant in San Bernardino for the first time at some schools. So that is really exciting, planting in a new location and then planting more in Pomona in areas that really need more canopy coverage. And then another exciting thing is that we are broadening our education. So of course, we have a lot of kids that come out to our tree planting events and they get some education there on why urban forestry is important. But of course, little kids, their attention span may not be that great when they're outside and other things are catching their attention. And of course, when we do our walk the town door-to-door canvassing, we are educating adults in that way as well. So now we are broadening to do classroom presentations at different local schools. So really targeting younger generations about why urban forestry is important, how trees grow, how we have to take care of them. So that's something that is really exciting. So if any of you are a teacher or know a teacher who would like a classroom presentation, please let us know, because we are definitely looking for new schools to work with. I think Stuart is going to drop the link to a Google form that we created where you can just input your information, and then we will reach out to you about doing that.
Great. Thanks, Nicole. Yeah, I'll drop that link in the chat box in just a second here. One last question, Nicole. Can you tell us something about Green Crew that you think is really important that maybe just people don't know about Green Crew?
Yeah, for sure. I kind of touched on it a little bit already, but I think when people think of Green Crew, they think of us as just a tree planting program, but we are definitely a tree planting and tree care program. So like I said, we have to do tree monitoring because for all of our big grants, all of the trees that we plant, of course, we want to make sure that they actually survive after we plant them. And we have to make sure that they survive for at least 3 years after the grant period ends. So we could be monitoring those trees every other month for 4 or 5 years. And I think that's something that not a lot of people realize, that definitely does take a lot of our time, is doing that monitoring of the trees. If they look like they need some more water, then we have to speak with residents about that, kind of remind them how to properly care for them. So again, with that, if you are interested in being a tree steward, we are always looking for help with doing that monitoring. If you take walks around Claremont and kind of want to look at trees for us and let us know how they're doing, or if you want to help us out at planting events, we also do need tree stewards for that, to monitor volunteers to make sure that they're planting those trees properly.
Great. Thanks so much, Nicole. Romeo, our other team member here. Romeo, would you go ahead and introduce yourself to our group?
Hi, everyone. I'm Romeo, and I joined the Sustainable Claremont crew in the summer of 2019. And prior to joining SC and running the community compost and raised garden bed program, I actually worked for one of the only local organic farms in the area called Amy's Farm. And that's where I gained my experience in growing vegetables and raising animals in a commercial scale. I also helped start a community farm in South Pomona called Buena Vista Community Farm, and also worked for Patagonia Pasadena, where I manage our environmental program as well as our food line, which highlights sustainable and regenerative farming practices.
Awesome, Romeo. Thanks for that. And so, Romeo, you're our expert, composting wizard. So tell us something you wish more people knew about compost.
All right, so this is sort of controversial, I guess. We can pretty much compost anything biological. So in a lot of arid places in the Southwest, lots of people actually do a composting process called humanure. And that is where human waste is turned into rich organic fertilizer. And this composting process basically leads to less water waste, which is roughly about 7,000 gallons annually per person. So basically, we're turning a common problem into a valuable resource.
All right, great. And then Romeo, you manage our community compost program with Richard. Can you tell us a bit about what your vision of the composting program is, and the raised bed program that you run is looking forward?
Sure. So it'll be great to actually expand the community compost program throughout the city. So having multiple locations. And I see both the community compost and the raised garden bed program working together, almost complementing each other, where we get quality soil from one program and use it to grow food. And then we get the food scraps and the food waste from the second program and turn it back into rich soil. And ideally, both programs can, keep going further to maybe like seed collecting and all the participants being able to connect with each other and share like growing tips or sharing their whatever they're growing. So yeah.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Romeo. And then last but certainly not least, our newest team member, Han. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself, Han?
Hi, I'm Han, and as of last week, I am the new Resource Center and Community Outreach Coordinator at Sustainable Claremont. And a little background on me is that I've always been interested in sustainability. And prior to joining Sustainable Claremont, I've had the experience serving as a Climate Corps Fellow and as a naturalist with other nonprofits in Southern California to support their sustainable education program. And now I'm looking forward to dedicating my time to support all of the programs that Sustainable Claremont has to offer.
Great. Thanks so much, Han. We're so thrilled to have you on the team. So glad you can make it, on such short notice a week into your new role here. Okay, so thank you all so much. That's enough from staff for now. Elise, I'm going to throw it to you to give us a little trivia.
All right, thank you. Yeah, my name is Elise Ferry. I'm a new board member of Sustainable Claremont, began this summer. My family and I have lived in Claremont for about 11 years, and I'm really enjoying getting to work with some great people in our great community to help make our world more sustainable. So a few trivia questions. I'm going to paste them into the chat and read them. And if you know the answer, feel free to put that into the chat. And I believe there are some prizes that will be rewarded to those who know the answer. So the first one, how many trees did Green Crew plant during the 2020-2021 program year? So take a few minutes to think about that and get the next question ready. All right, I'm going to start with the next question. If you're answering the second question and you think your answer might be similar to the first one, feel free to put answer 2 or question 2 next to it in the chat. All right, so the second question, what is Sustainable Claremont's longest running program? Any thoughts about that? Feel free to put those in the chat. Okay, so again, feel free to keep answering, and then I'll put the last question. How many pounds of food waste did Sustainable Claremont process this year? Okay, and that's all. Good luck winning the trivia questions.
All right, great. Thank you so much for the trivia, Elise. And me and the team will go through and check these, and then we've got some prizes that we'll deliver to whoever got the most of these correct. So great. Okay, so now we're kind of moving into a very exciting part of this evening that I've definitely been looking forward to. And so I'm going to introduce our amazing speaker here. So tonight we have Mariko Embry. She is the Sierra Club Senior Associate Director of National Energy Campaigns based in Los Angeles. She works to phase out dirty fossil fuels and justly transition to clean, renewable energy. Mariko leads a staff and volunteer teams across California in the power generation, energy supply, transportation, and building sectors. She also graduated from Pomona College and did her thesis in part under Char Miller. Previously, Mariko was a statewide coordinator at California Calls, where she supported 6 community-based organizations to develop integrated voter engagement strategies and civic engagement programs. Before moving to LA, she was a senior climate and energy campaigner at Greenpeace USA, where she worked to successfully retire 8 of 14 coal-fired power plants in North Carolina. It's amazing. She also campaigned to keep electricity rates affordable and expand access to clean energy for all communities. She's currently a member of the Manzanar Committee, a racial justice organization her grandmother founded 50 years ago to remember the unconstitutional incarceration of people of Japanese ancestry during World War II. And tonight, she's our very, very, very special guest. So Monica, thank you so much for being here, and I'll let you take it from here.
Perfect. Thanks so much, everyone, for having me join you tonight. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So I'm going to share my screen because I do have a slideshow. Hopefully, let me know if this is coming up for you all in a second here. Great. So I'm going to talk with you tonight a bit about environmental justice and oil drilling in Los Angeles as one of the areas of work that I have the privilege of focusing on. And it's a really important part of our climate solution, as I'm sure many of you are aware. So first, Stuart just did a quick introduction, but I also wanted to just share, I go by Monica or Monica. I use she and they pronouns, and I'm based on unceded Tongva land here in Los Angeles, not too far from all of you. And it's always important for me to share a little bit about my grandmother and the history that I come from. And so my grandmother was 18 years old when she was unconstitutionally incarcerated at the Manzanar concentration camp. It's actually the image behind me on my Zoom screen in the Eastern Sierras in an area known as Payuhunaru, or in English, as we've now known it as Owens Valley. And when she spent her time in camp, it was what she deemed lost years of her life. It was a really horrific and terrible trauma that many people in the Japanese American community faced and endured. And so she went after her incarceration and became a teacher, eventually moved back to Los Angeles and started bringing students back to Manzanar to really learn about this history. She taught one of the first ever Asian American Studies courses at UCLA, bringing students to talk about this history. And it's an important part for me of why I do my work, because when I decided it was time to go to college, I decided to come out here to Claremont and go to Pomona College. And during my first year on campus, my grandmother got sick. She had this cough for as long as she could remember, but she ended up passing away during my finals week, my first year. And it really broke my heart and made me really question about what I wanted to do. Did I want to keep studying here in Claremont? Did I want to go somewhere else? And I eventually got connected with some amazing mentors, people like Char Miller and Sefa, Ina, and Phyllis Jackson, who helped me understand the connection between the air pollution in the communities that my grandmother lived in, both in LA and the basin we have, some of the most toxic air in the country, but also during her time when she was incarcerated at Manzanar, breathing in toxic air from particulate matter 2.5 from the drying up of Owens Lake, had contributed to years and years of aggregating her lungs and ultimately caused her to pass away years too soon. And so it started me on my journey of really looking at environmental justice. I got my degree in environmental analysis, looking at the intersection of issues of race and class and gender with our environment. Because while all of us are not breathing healthy air, some of us are breathing more unhealthy air. And really addressing that inequity is the heart of what I have the privilege of working on now. And so I spent many years in North Carolina. This photo on the right is me actually helping at a rally around coal and fighting to shut down coal-fired power plants. And as Stuart mentioned, recently was published in The Nature of Hope, a book that Char Miller and Jeff Crane edited, looking at environmental justice and political organizing today. So what is environmental justice and intersectionality? In case these are words that you aren't familiar with, I want to give a quick context for these terms. Oh, here we are. So first, the idea of intersectionality or intersectional environmentalism is that we can't unlink the causes that are causing the harm and the solutions to our problems. So really looking at the structural inequity that links social justice and environmental issues. Head best perhaps is Audre Lorde, who says there's no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives. Those of us who, wherever we live, have the chance to be thinking about where we send our kids to school, and the air we breathe, and the water we drink, and the food we eat, the type of environment we live in, our homes, our work. All of those issues are directly connected to both environmental issues and social justice issues. And so this intersection, this look at these two movements, which have often been seen as separate, instead in an intersectional way, really is the kind of the framework through which I approach my work. And it really comes down to many, many people before me, including Dr. Bob Bullard, who's often known as the father of environmental justice, based in the Southeast. He spent years at Atlanta University, really helping advance this principle that all people and all communities have right to equal protection and equal enforcement of environmental laws and regulations. And the Sierra Club has an interesting history as the organization I currently work with environmental justice. We have a history of not actually starting in this path, and instead right now really working to really, an effort is really what I would say it is, to really address our work in a way that understands these connections and ensures that our work is not just for a minority of people, not just for those who have the wealth or the income in order to be able to enjoy our nature and outdoors, but really for all people within this country to be able to protect and preserve. So I'd like to tell a quick history that actually is part of Sierra Club's history and really important for me to share, which is that Sierra Club founder John Muir worked very closely with President Roosevelt to help form our national parks. I'm, a very personal fan of many of our parks, going later this week up to Yosemite myself. But our parks started with a really horrific founding, which was that it was actually because of the forced removal of Native peoples to create these wildernesses. And this is something that is a really important history to tell always, but especially today on Indigenous Peoples Day. And this was not always the case. So the idea of the creation of parks without people was something that happened. Actually, the first person who came up with the idea of our national parks was a painter named George Catlin. And in 1841, he wrote that the nation's parks could contain man and beast in all the wild and freshness of nature's beauty. However, John Muir had a really different understanding and perception of that 4 decades later. In the 1880s, he wrote, upon seeing the first peoples of Yosemite Valley, what were known as the Mono Indians, he claimed they, quote, seem to have no right place in the landscape, and I was glad to see them fading out of sight down the path. Later on, John Muir described these Native Americans as, quote, mostly ugly, some of them altogether hideous, and said a strangely dirty and irregular life these dark-eyed, dark-haired, half-happy savages lead in this clean wilderness. John Muir made a point of calling the nature, the flora and fauna clean and pristine, and really degraded the first peoples that were lived there. It was his conception that wilderness and people could not coexist, removing time immemorial of people who had been living within these lands in peace and harmony. And so this creation of parks devoid of people was something that John Muir, the Sierra Club founder, helped create. And it was a pretty brutal creation. So John Muir and others were really responsible for creating wilderness for the worthy. What they were doing was creating wild places for the elite of this country, the upper middle class white men who had the ability to do so, to go out and save them. Many historians have documented this. It's a really important part of our history as conservationists and environmentalists to understand that our parks were not created for all people, and in fact, were created with the pain and forced removal of many peoples from their homelands. And so the idea of creating wildlife for its aristocratic qualities is not something that we must continue to uphold in our thought processes or approaches to our work. And that's part of why many organizations, including Sierra Club, is really grappling with this history. We're really looking at telling the truth and figuring out what is our role in today to pull down our monuments, metaphorically, and really unpack John Muir's racist sentiments and understand the role that he played in forming our organization and what are the values and ideologies that we wish to uphold today, and ensuring that we are on a different path, one that upholds values of justice and inclusion and equity at the center of our work, and making sure that we are not doing our work at the harm or expense of communities. We abide by a set of principles that are called the Jemez Principles. These 6 principles are something that our organization is committed to, and we hold our volunteers and our staff accountable to as well. They include being inclusive, an emphasis on bottom-up organizing, letting people speak for themselves, working together in solidarity and mutuality, building just relationships among ourselves, and a commitment to self-transformation. And I would really encourage folks, if you're not familiar with the Jemez Principles, to look them up. They came out of a call from environmental justice communities asking environmental organizations to be more thoughtful about how we engage in our work. And I think are a really important and helpful resource and tool for all of us in this movement to hold ourselves accountable to. So that's kind of the background of how I approach this work and who I am. And now I want to talk and shift a little bit about the issue of oil in California. This feels especially timely given the spill that happened off our coast. And it has been a horrific reminder of just how dangerous oil drilling is, whether it's onshore or offshore. Most of what I'm going to talk about today is onshore, but happy to talk about what happens on our coasts as well. So this is what an oil well looks like. And this photograph is taken right here in Los Angeles. You can see that we have oil drilling directly in people's backyards. It's not something that most people think about. And when you think about LA and our Southern California communities, we don't really think about the fact that active oil drilling is still happening right here. Turns out California is actually number 7 in the country for oil production. And in 2019, we produced over 161 million barrels of oil from 105,000 total oil wells. Most of our oil comes out of Kern County, but you'd be surprised to find out Los Angeles is actually number 2 in counties for production. After that, many other counties across our coast are really the areas that a lot of oil drilling is happening, as well as some in the Central Valley. And when we look at where oil drilling is happening, if you'll remember back to what I was just talking about, really understanding where it is matters. Because it turns out that people who are disproportionately impacted by these oil and gas wells are overwhelmingly people of color and low-income households. We have over 2 million Californians that live within 2,500 feet of an oil or gas well, and over 7 million who live within a mile. We know the health impacts from oil drilling extend several miles. So these are really a significant issue, and extensive reporting by many groups, including Frac Tracker and NRDC, have documented and mapped out exactly where these oil wells are compared to communities across California. And in case you aren't familiar, here's a map of kind of the highest density of wells in our region in LA. You'll see a large cluster just next to Culver City, the Inglewood oil field. You'll see large clusters in East Los Angeles and Montebello and Whittier, clusters in South Los Angeles, and even along our coast. So really across the area, there's extensive oil and gas wells happening right here in LA. And to bring it home to Claremont, I pulled up the map of where are the closest wells that are near all of you. So you see there's one in Laverne, another one in Pomona, clusters in Diamond Bar and Chino Hills, and Chino, even one east of Ontario. So we have oil drilling all over, including in actually some of your neighborhoods as well. And so in total in LA, there's about over 5,000 oil wells. And again, 500,000 people just in LA County alone live within half a mile of an oil and gas well. This is a serious environmental crisis, but also a public health crisis, because the health and environmental impacts of oil drilling cannot be understated. What zip code someone is born in or lives in should not determine their life expectancy. When I think about my grandmother, the areas that she lived shouldn't determine the fact that she was going to get sick and pass away years too soon. That shouldn't happen to anyone's family. And so we are really connecting the links between the climate crisis and our public health crisis. This is a photo from an oil field in Kern County. So quickly, how does oil drilling work, right? So we have oil reserves underground. You have a derrick that is used then to drill and access that oil. But that's not all. We actually need trucks to bring in acid and other chemicals to these drill sites that are then stored in massive tanks in communities, in neighborhoods. Toxic chemicals that we know also cause cancer, in addition to the pollutants that actually come from drilling, are all part of this process. The easy to get oil has already been extracted, so companies are using more and more extreme techniques to be able to access the hardest to reach oil deposits. And these are causing major impacts. We know the impacts from both the drilling and the chemicals used in drilling cause everything from nosebleeds to headaches, skin, eye, and throat irritation to more serious respiratory ailments, endocrine disruption, low birth weight babies, cancers, and premature deaths. We know this is impacting people at their homes, their schools, parks and playgrounds, places of worship, healthcare facilities, and other vulnerable places in our community. So these are all photographs we've taken in LA, right? We know oil drilling is literally happening next to our parks and playgrounds, where our kids are, where our crops are grown in the northern part of the county. It is seriously a crisis. And then when we link the health crisis of today, we understand the impacts that COVID-19 has to air pollution, and know that you are more likely to contract COVID-19 or pass away from it if you are being exposed to toxic air, as all of us here in the South Basin are. So I promise not just to doom and gloom. There are some solutions that we are really trying to advocate for right now. So quite simply, or maybe not as simply, we're calling for a just transition. We want to leave an economy that's based on extreme extraction, one that really is run on fossil fuels, and instead invest in a clean, regenerative economy, one that's powered by 100% renewable energy. That means our communities are safe for all of us and resilient to the worst impacts of climate change. Ones in which people can afford to live and stay in their communities, have access to healthy foods, and are able to enjoy shade and beautiful trees. One that is really vibrant, and that's a whole shift of an economy, not just a simple practice. 3 steps that we're currently calling our state to lead on, and Governor Newsom, is to stop issuing new oil and gas permits. Because when you're in a hole, you need to stop digging. And so we have to stop issuing new permits today. Develop a plan to drop existing production and really start that phase out of oil and gas drilling, and roll out oil and gas setbacks so that our most vulnerable communities, those that live within 2,500 feet of an oil well, get protections first and immediately, especially because we know those are predominantly communities of color and low-income households. So what are we working on to make that happen? Right now, we have been advocating at the state at an agency that's called CalGEM, that's our state oil and gas regulators, to publish their first ever health and safety rule. We've gotten them to agree to write it, and now we're at the final stage of getting them to actually publish the rule. Fingers crossed, we see that this fall. We've been working on this for 2 years. And this rulemaking is to establish a transparent set of rules to protect residents and communities near oil and gas extraction sites. Those people that I talked about whose oil wells are in their backyards, we want them to be protected, and the oil wells closest to people shut down first as part of that just transition. So fingers crossed we get Governor Newsom to introduce that rule. Rumor has this month, so I will keep you all posted if we actually get that out. And then the second thing is we also work really locally. So in LA County, actually just last month, we passed a rule to phase out and end all oil drilling in unincorporated parts of LA County. This is a really important regulation to protect the health, safety, public welfare, and environmental resources of the county. And our 5 county supervisors passed it unanimously. It was a huge historic win, something that our Sierra Club and many of our allies have been working on for quite some time, and I'm really excited to share more about. And so this victory was really led by Supervisor Holly Mitchell, who lives in the district with the most oil and gas wells. Holly Mitchell was previously a state senator and before that a state assembly member, and really has been leading the front. 10 years ago, she introduced the first ever fracking ban in California. And while that didn't pass, her leadership continues today as an environmental justice champion. And not only did we pass a rule to help end oil drilling, we also passed a rule the same day to enact a just transition for Los Angeles, because we want the people who are working in that industry to get transitioned to good, safe jobs. We want those who are ready to retire to be given a pathway to retirement. Those who may need transition to a new career to get that training and resource and job placement. And so we've formed a task force for all workers in the fossil fuel industry to be transitioned so that they're not left behind, and that the community members who've been living at the forefront and front lines of this oil pollution to also get a chance to transition into the good jobs of a clean energy future, because too many of our community members have also not been allowed to get access to these good jobs. So how do we do this? We build power to win. First, we organize in our communities. When it was safe before COVID, we would often go door to door, talk to and educating neighbors who live near oil drilling about what's happening in their communities, and ask them to take action and get involved to get their elected officials to pass regulations. We would then bring people to testify at city council meetings and county supervisor meetings. This is one at Culver City, where we've also successfully passed a phase out of oil. We would lobby elected officials. This is us lobbying then Senator Holly Mitchell for her work at the state Senate to help pass strong laws. And we rally for justice, sometimes even with really cool celebrities like Don Cheadle, who join us in the streets to march and demand real climate solutions. And we don't do this alone. We build with coalition partners, especially groups that are on the front line. Community-based organizations, honestly, like Sustainable Claremont, and others who are doing the work in communities to make sure it's rooted in our people and our places. And we take people out on tours. We actually, as Sierra Club, are probably best known for our outings and our hikes. We take people what we call toxic tours and show them that this park right here is actually a photograph of one of our volunteers, Raj, taking people out at Baldwin Hills, is right in an urban oil field. And so how close our nature is often to our polluting facilities and why we need to protect people and our places. And we have fun making t-shirts and creating artistic signs. Those boxes where there's two of our youngest volunteers are delivering tens of thousands of comments to the county, calling on them to phase out oil drilling. And we educate and engage people more than ever now online because of the pandemic in order to create safe on our social media accounts, but also in stories like the New York Times. I actually could replace this. Josiah, as one of our volunteers, just did a great story yesterday that actually was a huge national story on CNN. So many times we're telling the story across LA, but then also across the country. And I wouldn't be an organizer if I didn't ask you all to take action. So we know, quite simply, this is not okay. Fracking sites, oil drilling sites should not be next to our elementary schools, next to our homes, parks, and playgrounds. So calling on you to sign our petition at sc.org/LAoil and really help take action to make sure that we keep passing protections. We've won it at LA County, but we now need it for LA City. And so we're next focusing on getting the city of Los Angeles to push for these protections. Anyone across the county can sign because we know those boundaries for pollution go far beyond the city limits. And so we encourage anyone to take action at sc.org/LAoil and call on LA City to now lead the way that LA County has now taken. And you can follow us on social media. We follow with a hashtag no drilling where we're living. We know that together we can win this fight. There's more information on our website at cleanbreak.info, and I can share this slides deck afterwards with Stuart, so you can share with anyone who wants any of these links. And then feel free to reach out with me. The last thing I'll share is my favorite quote. It is kind of the way that I think about my work. It's attributed to Aboriginal activists from Australia, which says, "If you have come to help me, you are wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." Thank you.
Monica, that was an incredible talk. Thank you so much for giving that to us. I think we have a little bit of time for questions, if that's okay. I know we are getting near the end. I'm going to start out with a question. If anyone else has questions, just for the sake of time, can you drop it in the chat box? And then I could address it to Monica directly, so we don't have to worry about the transitions. Monica, if I could ask you the first question, as you're going through your presentation, I'm thinking about how you successfully are having these cities and counties phase out fossil fuels. What is like the level of granularity for regulation of them? Like, can a city phase it out? Is it something that's done at the state level or at the county, or like, who are the leaders we need to organize to educate?
Great question. So yes, every city has land use regulatory authority, right? So your city or county has the ability to say, this is what's allowed to be zoned. This is what we allow on our land. And so every oil well and many other toxic facilities have to get permission. Often those are grandfathered in. And so an opportunity lies in checking what the codes are for your city. But each different municipality has the authority to say, this type of practice, oil drilling, is no longer compatible with our land use. And that's sometimes called police powers that a city or county is able to exercise, and they are able to update their code to do so. One of the things that gets tricky is that companies are going to sue. Right? We know that the oil industry is going to sue to make sure they can keep drilling as long as possible. So the city and its lawyers have to do their due diligence to prove that that company has taken out as much profit as they're deserved based on how much they've put in. That's done by a complex legal process called an amortization study. And at Culver City, they commissioned amortization studies. The LA County is currently commissioning amortization studies to figure out the exact timeline. But yes, it is absolutely within a city's authority to say, we no longer want this type of practice within our city limits.
And Drew sort of asked a follow-up question that, but maybe you sort of answered this, which is, what is the biggest impediment to decommissioning the wells in Baldwin Hills or anywhere? And he says this seems like the biggest environmental injustice in our county.
Thank you. I would agree. It's one of the worst environmental injustices. The number of folks, including definitely the disproportionate impact on Black Americans in LA County at Baldwin Hills, is an egregious crisis with these oil wells. It's one of the reasons it's our main focus and one of the main fields we've been organizing on for years. Those people knocking on doors were all in Baldwin Hills. Yes, so the main barrier is up until Supervisor Mitchell was elected, lack of political will, and really getting our leaders to follow in the actions we need them to take. It takes everyday people calling on our elected officials, meeting with our elected officials, sending letters to them, writing letters to the newspaper, and forcing them to stand up to the oil and gas industry and making sure they listen to people and not polluters. So I think the biggest impediment is really political will in every community.
All right, great. Oh, let's see if we can mute that real quick. Sorry, we got a rogue mic going here. Do we have any other questions from anyone in the audience? I don't want to eat up too much of the time here. Let's see. I think we just got another one in. Is a comment from Karen Rosenthal. Brea appears to be the closest oil field to Claremont, and there was Karen Rosenthal asks, how can we respond to this this need, and in the community, and so if we're coming at this as like a new thing that we're kind of taking on and turning our efforts towards it, what do you see, or what do you see other organizations doing as like the first step here?
Definitely, I would say there's 3 steps that I would encourage folks to take. First is to reach out to others and find out, are there neighborhood groups, are there activists, are there other organizations that are taking on this issue? Because we are stronger together, right? Never on any campaign have I ever won alone as one organization. We always do better. So let's reach out and figure out, there might be folks working on that issue already and learning. So I wouldn't, that specific field, I don't know, but there might be people there. So let's learn if people are already taking this on. Number 2 will be then to look at, what are the current rules on the book? So what are the current laws that allow or don't allow oil drilling to happen? In Culver City, there weren't rules that allowed it to happen. So we got to update the rules and say, these toxic facilities that grandfathered in, we don't want them anymore. We're going to pass a rule that says no. In LA County, there were rules allowing them to operate. And in fact, 1 year ago, the rules were going to let them operate for 20 more years. And in 1 year, we got a dozen groups together and we met every week for a year and turned it around to get to full shutdown, right? So you can turn things around even when it seems impossible. They were going to pass a rule letting 20 more years of oil drilling, which we cannot afford. That does not meet the Climate Paris Accords. That is not good for our communities. We do not need to be drilling for oil in LA at all. So figure out what the rules are is number 2. And then 3 would be get a group of dedicated volunteers together who want to actually take this on, right? And so I would say, check what other people are doing, learn what the rules are, and find who your crew is. And those 3 steps are what I've seen be really successful. And then feel free to reach out to me and others, and we can help provide a ton of legal research and health data and template letters. And so no one has to recreate a wheel here. We've been working on this for a while. There's a lot of really great resource out there.
Right, awesome. And then Nancy Hamlet asks, in transitioning fossil fuel workers to new jobs or retirement, how is that funded? Is that public funding? Is that fossil fuel companies having to pay the way for the transition? What does that look like?
$1 million, probably several billion-dollar question. Actually, I think it will be easier here in LA than in other places like Kern County, where I do support a staff team. It'll be a really different conversation in Kern. Here in LA, you'd be surprised. Across all of LA County, it's estimated that we have less than 1,000 people. That's actually not that many people compared to LA County, our 10 million people, less than 1,000 in the oil well industry, right? So we are not talking about huge numbers of people. And so part of what we're looking at right now on our task force, which is officially being convened by LA County, I sit on our task force along with labor unions and other orgs, is who are the people first? Of these estimates range between 600 and 900. We don't even know exactly how many people work in the industry. So number 1, who are they? Number 2, how old are they, right? And if they are a few years out from retirement, what does it look like for a subsidized program from us to say, thank you for your work, and we actually want you to retire with dignity, and therefore here's a glide path to get to that. I think Sierra Club would actually be in favor of a publicly funded opportunity. There's like, we can pass our federal legislation any day now, big money coming down to help support some of this work. A bigger question is the training and replacement of the 2/3 of workers who aren't ready for retirement. And how do we think about those folks? What are the public and private opportunities to make that happen? I'll also say in my closing note on this, I don't need someone to go from working in an oil field to installing solar panels. It doesn't have to be that type of transition. You can go from working in an oil field to any other industry that's not causing harm. Maybe folks want to be healthcare professionals. Maybe they want to be teachers. Maybe they want to be planting trees. Maybe they want to be solar installers, but they don't have to stay even within the energy sector. The people who lay pipes for oil can lay pipes for water. And guess what? Almost all of our pipes for water need to be replaced across the country. It's a massive job creator. So I don't need folks to stay in the energy sector. And that feels really important to share, because often we get told solar jobs aren't good jobs right now. And that's also true. So part of our job is to make sure those jobs get unionized, are good paying, are actually taking care of people, but also it doesn't need to stay in the energy sector. People can do anything, and really creating those opportunities for folks to transition is part of what we're really envisioning.
Great. And then I just have one last question for you from Joe Salas, and then I'll wrap things up, because I think this might be a quick one. Have all the announced candidates running for LA City Mayor signed the pledge to sort of, decommission or, take a stand on drilling in the city?
Great question. There's a couple of pledges that go around. The main one we circulate is actually to not accept fossil fuel dollars. And I would have to check with where all the different candidates are on that. And then different ones have taken different positions on various fossil fuel infrastructure. You can imagine there's a lot. There's wells, as I'm going to talk about today, but there's also gas plants, and there's pipeline, and there's offshore, and there's lots of different things that play into this. So I would have to check, and happy to get back to you about where the different candidates stand.
All right, great. Well, Monica, we got a couple more questions, but maybe offline I could send them to you. We'd sort them out. But again, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for presenting to us. Super eye-opening on so many fronts. And so big round of applause, silent round of applause for your efforts. Thank you, Monica. We're going to have you back at some point. And so this is, we're coming to the end of our gala here. And so I just wanted to wrap up and say a couple quick things, a couple quick announcements. So we are going to be posting our annual report for the 2020-2021 program year this week. So we'll be sending that in our email newsletter, and it'll be available on our website and across social. So keep your eye out on that, and that'll get into a lot of the more details of some of the things that we spoke about today. We also have a lot of really interesting, fun things happening. We're getting back to planting now that things are cooling down. And so check out our newsletter to make sure that you can volunteer at our planting events now that we're doing more things distanced, but in person. And then I just wanted to give one last thank you to everyone. So a big thank you to Monica for the amazing presentation. A big thank you to our sponsors for making our gala, as always, really important fundraiser for us. So making it a really big success. So Curtis Realty, Eugene Bolton and Solar Solutions, Jeff Hamill, Gould Asset Management, Lewis Management Group, and Golden State Water. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Our board and our amazing team of staff who work so hard, and we're small but mighty, and we have a growing impact. So big thank you to all of you, and everyone who donated to our silent auction, which is my transition to, if you've not checked out our silent auction, go check it out and be super competitive and make sure you win whatever item it is that you have your eye on. So that's been dropped in the link into the chat box by Nicole. Thanks, Nicole, for doing that. And that's it. Thank you all so much. I'll be keeping the Zoom on if anyone wants to stick around and chat, but take care and go watch the Dodgers and have a great rest of your night. Thank you, everybody.
And no pressure, but I'm happy to stay on and keep chatting for a few more minutes too.
All right, cool. Yeah, Monica, I think the only question we didn't get to was one from Hugh. I don't know if he signed off already. Hugh is one of our co-chairs. He works at the Trust for Public Land. And he asked, let's see.
Still here. Still.
Oh, there he is. Hugh, what did you ask? Yours is sort of lost in the thread of comments now.
It was whether or not there are any studies or data about the healthcare costs and other externalized costs from drilling in neighborhoods. It just seems like it's probably an important part of the argument. I think, Monica, you actually started answering this in the chat, if I see.
Yeah, I was trying to. Yeah, so we actually have two of our lead volunteers happen to be UC Berkeley professors. One is the head of the health department and one's the head of econ. And they work really well together to figure out how to monetize the social impacts of these health costs. And actually they are working on a report right now. So love that idea. It is a really important one. I did throw a link into the chat from our website, which is actually all volunteer run, and love volunteer run groups like yours are, at Clean Break Reports Research. That tab does link all of the most up-to-date health research and impacts. There's new data literally coming out every year about how dangerous it is to live near oil wells. So they're using that data to then inform, okay, how can we estimate what these costs are? As you know, it's so hard to actually estimate ER visits and all of the other impacts.
Sometimes that's the thing that changes the political will of some of the electeds. So,
nope, it's a great point.
Yeah, it's great.
Monica, when you do this sort of advocacy with electeds, what do you find is the greatest leverage point? Do you think it is the health stuff, or what do you see on the ground when you're having these conversations?
Overall, I think the health angle is probably the strongest one that resonates with folks. We bring in people who live at the front lines of these issues. One of our lead volunteers is actually the volunteer who started our oil and gas effort at the Sierra Club locally. He's been working on this for 9 years. He lost 2 of his immediate family members to cancer. And he's a UCLA professor, lives in the Baldwin Hills region. And, it's really devastating to really think about the health impacts of this. And so when he starts talking about those stories, even the most cynical or fossil fuel aligned elected official pauses for a moment to hear those personal stories of the impacts that these are having. He happens to be an infectious disease specialist, and so could really speak up for the impacts of health impacts.
Right.
But yeah.
Do you find that like in some of the smaller communities, like thinking about Laverne where I live and there's the oil well there, I sort of wonder how like plugged in like some of our city council members are to the fact that there even is like an oil well here. And, you know, how much of this, certainly in some communities, like it's obvious, but like you said, like for so many places, there might be a couple scattered and it might not be as big of a role. But I wonder if that makes it, you know, easier to find change or even harder, because if it's just like, you know, a small number or, you know, not front and center, I don't know.
I think both, right? I think in some areas where you have both of those are competing challenges, right? I don't know if one's easier or harder, but they both are definitely real. When you can't see the problem, it's a lot harder to fight it, right? I think about that with a lot of our air pollution. Sometimes we can see it, a lot of our air pollution we can't see. I think about that honestly with carbon dioxide, right? You can see it, it might be easier to fight, but people can't see it and it makes it difficult to imagine and envision and think about those impacts. And then on the other hand, where the places where there's a ton of density like Baldwin Hills, there are extreme financial interests from a very few who will fight with all of their resource to be able to continue to maximize profit at the expense of communities, right? So both are challenges, I think. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, good point. All right, great. Anyone else on any other lingering questions? Should we let Monica go?
I mean, I feel like we could grill you forever. I
know.
should let you go, but I just want to thank you for your framing of all of this and your perspective on it, because I feel like for us, I mean, I think for many of us, it is central to our thinking, but we don't always put it out in the forefront in that way, in terms of the intersectional components and the, you know, racial justice, environmental justice, like that, all of that is so linked. And it's really a good reminder to sort of like be really forward about all of that. It frames it really nicely. So thank you for that, as well as the other content.
Absolutely. It feels pretty important to me. You'll notice almost every presentation I do, try to stay really grounded in their values, right? And who we are. And it's easy if we don't be really clear about and explicit about what our values are, to not then potentially repeat a really horrific legacy that a lot of us are trying to heal some harms from, right? And so part of that is telling the truth and saying it directly and honestly, with as much compassion for ourselves and others, and to not shy away from the need to really root our work in that truth. So I love that, y'all. Yeah, I know y'all share that value, and I'm glad that resonated. So.
Monica,
awesome to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah. Are you still doing your semester, every semester with Char in his class?
I do. Yep, I do. I go back and do a quick guest lecture, which is pretty fun. Yeah, last spring it was fun with the seniors writing theses. So I'm waiting for that. Probably next month he and I will connect. I've come back and talked at his water class and multiple other ones, which is such a pleasure. And yeah, I love staying connected to the 5 C's. So it's really, really sweet. And back when it was easy to be in person for it, we'd always drive out and do it. Now with Zoom, it's even easier, honestly, but I don't have to handle the traffic on that.
Especially on a night like tonight with right.
Yeah.
All right. I would love to just interview you for like another 2 hours, but I think that we should probably let you go. And so just for everyone else who's still on, thank you all for being out here. And Monica, please don't be a stranger. And if you're ever in the Claremont area, let us know. Yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you all so much for having me. It was such a wonderful time connecting with you. Loved the questions, and take care. Thank you for all that you do too. It was really inspiring to hear the amount of work y'all are holding down. So appreciate that.
Great. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, everyone else.
Take care, everyone.
Have a great night, everybody. All right. Bye-bye.